All right, we're going to grab a phone call here. We've got Paul in New Jersey. Aloha, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike.
Hi.
Listen, it's ironic that Rick Santorum, who really would like to turn this country into a theocratic republic, is so eager to bomb the theocratic republic of Iran, because that is the type of government that they have in Iran.
But see, their theocracy is bad, and Rick Santorum's theocracy is good. I mean, that's the whole... That's it. You know, basically we're risking global thermonuclear war, H-bombs, mushroom clouds over every city in America, arguing over whose deity has the largest genitalia. I think I can say it that way without losing this broadcast license.
And of course it's because ultimately, and I think Americans are going to enjoy their having chose sides. You know, Americans consider themselves too smart to listen to the advice of George Washington about steering clear of permanent alliances. Mm-hmm. And now because we're so in bed with the Zionists and the State of Israel, now they're going to be paying...
Okay, I want to clarify something here. I'm sorry. I have to clarify something here. The United States government is not in bed with Israel. Israel makes the U.S. government sleep on the floor at the foot of the bed. Let's just get that kind of squared away right now.
But the point is, you know, the reason why gas prices are high is because we've alienated the Arab world. If we had left Saddam Hussein alone back in early 2000 and had voted in a Republican or libertarian candidate, or for that matter, Ralph Nader in 2000, we'd be paying about $1 a gallon for gasoline. And this is because we're choosing the wrong side in the Middle East. Why wouldn't we choose the side that's got all the oil and be their best buddies? I just don't understand.
We didn't have a choice. The choice was never made. Israel came in and subverted the U.S. government to their purposes. They're doing exactly the same thing to Canada right now. We were never given a choice. I would not choose to support Israel in their genocide against the Palestinians. I would choose for Israel to draw their borders and learn to live within them like any other modern civilized nation. I would choose for Israel to sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and submit to IAEA inspections like any other modern civilized nation. I would not choose to have our government enslaved to a nation that still thinks the world is, an Old Testament biblical kingdom, waiting for the Lord to come on down and smite the enemies.
And this is part of the tragedy of the State of Israel. If when they needed a homeland for the Jewish people, I mean, they could have just set aside land in Paraguay. Maybe Kodiak Island out in Alaska would be a little too cold for their taste. But really, for the amount of real estate the State of Israel is, they could have situated that many people just about anywhere in the world with the amount of aid and money that they could have put into it. And now it just shows.
Well, Hitler wanted to give them Madagascar.
So cheap.
Can I cut in here? Hitler wanted to give them Madagascar. But, the Zionists didn't want Madagascar because they were reading those Old Testament parchments and saying, no, the imaginary playmate in the cloud said we're supposed to live here and the rest of you are supposed to get out of our way. And really, if we're supposed to somehow globally make atones for what the Nazis supposedly did in World War II, we should have given the Jews Germany. And the reality is, once the war was over and the Nazis were gone, Germany was probably the safest place on the planet for them to live in. But they're not listening to practicality and safety and everything. They're listening to the imaginary playmate in the clouds who is saying, yes, you must go back to the Holy Land. And the funny thing is this whole concept about a Jewish people. There really isn't a Jewish people. They're all basically converts at some point or another from other religions. The largest subgroup is the Ashkenazi. And they're the descendants of Central Asian Khazars who converted to Judaism in 800 A.D. That's why they've got that lily white skin. That's where all the European and Russian Jews come from, and they've got that white skin. They're obviously not descended from Middle Eastern Hebrews or Hyksos, for that matter. My own particular subgroup on my father's line, the Sephardics, are a blend of ancient Hebrews and converted Berbers. So there is no Jewish people per se. And so this idea that there must be a homeland for them, I mean, again, back to the situation, there's a huge Jewish population in Iran that are so comfortable there. Israel tried to bribe them to relocate to Israel, and they said, no, we're happy here. And it's this whole idea of a homeland for this supposed singular, genetically unique Jewish people. It's all a myth. It's all a hoax.
Either way, I just don't want to be involved in it. I don't want to pay for it. And we're paying for it now.
We are.
I think that's what we need to drum into the heads of American people who are hurting at the gas pumps right now with the high gas prices. If we had chosen a different foreign policy and different alliances, we'd be getting oil plenty cheap right now and enjoying.
It all boils down to what we needed to do was go into Washington, D.C. and pop some of these people in the nose and say, look, you work for us, not for Israel. That's really what it comes down to. And unfortunately, I think the corruption has reached a point where I know for a fact our present government will never turn around and change course because they're all getting rich off of this scam. They send your money to Israel. Israel sends back a percentage to tithe the Congress, and they're all getting rich and we're all getting poor. They're never going to change things because they love things just the way they are, and they're absolutely convinced that by running the country the way they're running it, that they're going to get an inside track past the pearly gates when they die. So they're all caught up in that whole mythology situation. What I am hoping is going to happen is, and I think Israel understands it, which is why all of a sudden they're working so hard to get their talents into Canada, the United States government is going to collapse. It's going to collapse, and whatever government comes into existence here in the United States of America afterwards is not going to be well disposed to Israel, no matter how much bribe money they're trying to shower all over the new government. It's just not going to happen. And so they're getting ready to basically leave. It's like fleas on a dog that's dying. They just hop onto a new dog, and life goes on as it did before.
And it might be next country, India.
Yes, yeah, it's just this situation, and the reality is that Israel should be a country just like any other country, with drawn borders and the rule of law and international agreements that hold its ambitions in check. And when you look at all the ways in which Israel is basically holding itself above the law and allowed to, you begin to understand there's something seriously wrong with the world today. A classic example: AIPAC should be registered as the agent of a foreign government. It is the only such foreign power lobby to basically not have to follow the rules. And again, with the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the reason for that treaty is to prevent countries from selling nuclear weapons without it being tracked or approved. And yet Israel was caught trying to sell a nuclear weapon to South Africa, the very activity. All the Non-Proliferation Treaty actually has accomplished is to create a monopoly on clandestine nuclear weapon sales for the state of Israel, so they can charge whatever they want. The reason they want Iran's nuclear power to go away is they're not afraid of an attack. They're afraid Iran will bring competition to the marketplace and lower profits. That's what it's really all about.
Well, I think there's a lot of different actors with their own agendas. I think you have oil interests also.
That's true. No war was ever started for just one reason.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who have their own little agenda, and everybody's getting a piece of the pie, and they seem to fit a lot of people under the neocon tent.
They certainly do, and unfortunately, the only people who are not getting a piece of this particular pie are the parents who have to bury their children. And they're told, it was worth losing your child. We brought democracy to those other countries. We made the world better somehow. We got rid of those weapons of mass destruction. And it's just whatever lie will get the American people to shut up and go along with shoveling our babies onto the bayonets of the designated enemy. And I would hope that at some point the American people are going to have this grand epiphany and say, this is really kind of messed up.
Yeah, well, glory is also a good term to bandy about and slap around a bunch of medals, little pieces of metal that they can pin on their chest. That's another good one.
Yeah, every time I hear the word glory, I think of flowers. But yeah, it's the other thing. I remember during Vietnam there was this popular anti-war song, and I remember this one lyric: "Here's a medal of shining gold. Your son is dead, 19 years old." And of course, these days the medals aren't even gold; they're plastic. Have you seen the military decorations they're handing out? They're plastic.
Yeah.
They're not even going to last long enough to give to your kids as a remembrance of where Daddy went.
Yeah, but then plastic is kind of like the perfect symbol in a sense.
Yes.
Like out of The Graduate, superficial.
It's a perfect metaphor.
Itself, like the meaning of our country, almost. How we've been corrupted and tainted by this losing our moral high ground by turning away from our founders' intent.
Well, I think we've lost our self-respect, and that's why, it's like abused spouse or abused child syndrome. where you're being pounded on and abused and looted, and you just go along with it and you don't say anything in the hope that it won't get any worse. But of course, it is getting worse, and it's abusers never back off. We have an abusive government. It's abusing the people. It's reveling in the fact that it can get away with it, and we need the American people to basically have that burning bed moment. We really do.
And it might be coming, with it just economic.
I think it's close. I think it's very, very close. Well, we're hearing now that there may be a Greece spring because they're angry over there. That, of course, will absolutely trigger all those credit default swaps for the Eurozone debt, and that will bring down the American banking system. I don't think they can hold it off. And I know they can't hold it off until the November elections, even with this sudden thing where they're trying to buy American stocks to run up the stock market to keep their balance sheets in the black. But it's all a hoax. It's all a fraud. The stocks aren't actually worth anything more. They're just, the prices are being run up by market manipulation. And prices are not worth, but that's what they're going to be putting on those bank balance sheets. And they'll bubble it up, and there'll be a huge crash, and that'll be the end of it.
Yeah, well, stocks inflate like any other item. Everything inflates with inflation. Stock prices will have to be factored in too. They double the money supply. Technically, stocks should be doubled too.
Well, you're absolutely correct about that. But in terms of the bankers, they'll just put that inflated price on the balance sheet and say, "See, now we're back in the black." Issue a memo. We're back in the black. Well, I'd issue the memo, but it put us back in the red again. All right, so no memo.
Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And I want to switch over to the situation, as the last caller was talking about, Israel and Iran and this very obvious push to war. And as we said, there's never really just one reason to go to war. There's a lot of overlapping agendas. We know from the United States government point of view, they need a major, major war to distract from the already ongoing wars and the economic disaster, which we understand is about to get a lot worse. So they need a war to basically get away from that. And that's the historical pattern. Crash of 1907, solve it by getting into World War I. Crash of 1929, solve it by getting into World War II. Crash of 2008, solve it by getting into World War, whatever number we're going to assign to this one. Obama's reasons for wanting to get into the war, I think he's conflicted. He's not sure a war is really going to win him any support right now, but he understands the historical tendency of the American voter is to not switch presidents in midterm in the middle of a war. And he may decide that's something he needs to do for his campaign here. Meanwhile, Israel's prime minister, who's over here for the AIPAC conference, and he's up there in Canada making sure they're in line. He's running around the world making sure that all of his slaves are doing what they're paid to do. And he's demanding Obama commit to military action. That's the word that was in the headline, demands. Demands. Israel demands the United States goes to kill its enemies. This is from a country, Israel, that is, at least according to this member of parliament who was just forced to resign, sponging over $100 billion a year off the American taxpayer. And when you're getting that kind of money from the taxpayer, you don't demand anything. You ask politely or not at all. Even without the money, when you are asking a country to throw their children onto the bayonets of your enemies, you ask nicely or you don't ask at all. You don't come in demand. We demand you throw your children onto the bayonets of our enemies. That's Israel right now. I think it's time Obama stopped signing all those checks full of your dollars for Israel. They don't need any more weapons from us for free. They've got a huge weapons manufacturing capacity. Because they're getting all their weapons for free from the United States, the weapons they manufacture, they sell to make more money. Israel's not this helpless little nation that needs us to prop them up. And I don't know why we're propping them up anyway. We don't owe Israel anything. We, the United States of America, and the Allies are the ones who stopped Hitler from doing whatever it was he was supposed to be doing. I'd like to see some gratitude come back the other way. If everything we are told about the history of World War II is accurate, and we stopped it, then Israel ought to be showing us a little gratitude. How about some money coming back the other way for all those families who lost their principal breadwinner in World War II? and who ultimately lost their homes and businesses. Why isn't Israel taking care of them out of gratitude for this supposed rescue from the evil demon Nazis? Israel doesn't act like they have anything to be grateful for, which is another reason to suspect that maybe we have been fibbed to a little bit about the history of World War II by that same government that promised us Saddam had weapons of mass destruction.